All you need to succeed in life is desire and determination. There are thousands of books that will say all you need in life to succeed is desire and determination. And I'm here to tell you that's just not true. It's just not true. I know a lot of people have desire and determination and have not succeeded in life because it's partially true. Of course you need desire. Of course you need determination. But you need more than that. You need the tools and you need the skills to succeed in life. For instance, a farmer can pray all he wants for a giant corn crop, but if he plants the wrong seed, if he uses the wrong fertilizer, if he doesn't give it the proper amount of water, if he doesn't use the right harvester, it's not going to be a big crop no matter how hard he prays and how sincere he is. And if I'm growing a crop of wheat and I use a tomato harvester, it won't work. And if I'm growing grapes and I use a corn harvester, it won't work. You've got to have the right tools in life to succeed, and you got to have the right skills in life to succeed. It's Ecclesiastes 10:10 from the Bible. It's one of my life verses, and it says this: if the axe is dull and its edge is unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. What that verse is saying is work smarter, not harder. I know a lot of people in life who work harder than me, but it's not about working hard, it's about working smart. And it says if you sharpen your axe, then it won't take as much effort for you to succeed in life. You'll have the right skills. Now, one of the skills is learning how to deal with the negative people in your life, the naysayers that want to keep you from succeeding. A naysayer is a person who says something won't work or isn't possible, a cynic who habitually expresses pessimistic views. Anything great that's ever been done has always had naysayers. Now, let me just start by saying this. The naysayers in your life, they're not bad people. They're not bad people. In fact, there are naysayers in your life who love you. And there are naysayers in your life who actually want what's best for you. They're just mistaken. And the reason why they're mistaken, and they say it can't be done and you can't do it and all this, is because they don't know what God has said to you. God gave you a dream. I've always wanted to do this. God gave you a vision. God gave you a mission. God gave you a purpose. And he didn't give that dream to somebody else, so somebody else isn't going to understand that dream like you do. So they're going to tend to be negative about it. These are not bad people. They just don't see the perspective that you see. So how do you face opposition and negativity? This is one of the first skills you have to learn as a leader, how to not let negativity get you down. You have to learn this if you're going to be a leader in life. So how do you learn that? Well, fortunately, we got a story in the Bible that tells us and teaches us this skill. It's the story of David and Goliath. You know this story of this little shepherd boy, young boy, who was out tending sheep, and Israel is fighting its big enemy, the Philistines, and the Philistines had a guy who was literally a giant. He was like 8 or 9 feet tall. He was just a big man, and he was scaring everybody to death, and he was taunting the enemies, and David says, I'll take him on. But long before that happened, David had to face 4 other giants. And that's what I want us to look at today. Not David and Goliath, but what gave him the courage to take on Goliath, because the 4 giants he faced before Goliath were all naysayers. They were people who didn't believe in his ability, didn't believe in his competence, didn't believe that God was working in his life. And he had to struggle with those before he could go face Goliath. The first negative or naysayer that David had to face was actually his own dad. And so write this down. His dad held him back. That's the first naysayer. And oftentimes, a parent will be somebody who holds you back and keeps you from becoming all God wants you to be. In verses 12 to 15, all these verses are in 1 Samuel 17. It says this. Now, David was the youngest of Jesse's 8 sons. And his 3 older brothers enlisted in Saul's army. Saul was the king of Israel at the time. But David was held back to care for the sheep in Bethlehem. Have you ever been held back by anyone? Of course you have. Of course you have. This is the first barrier to your dream. When somebody holds you back, it's a delay. Now, some of you have been held back because of your age. Some of you have been held back because of your gender. You're a woman. Some of you have been held back because of your race. Some of you have been held back because of your ethnicity or the color of your skin or the language you speak. You may have been held back because you weren't as educated as somebody else. You weren't promoted because you didn't have something that somebody else had. You all remember this in school. There were people who were more athletic than you. There were people who were more musical than you. There were people who were more academic than you. David's dad wanted David to be a shepherd for the rest of his life, and yet David had already been anointed as king. Now, the first barrier in your success plan, write this down, is delay. Because when God gives you a dream, it never, never, never happens instantly. He gives you a dream. He says, this is what I'm going to do in your life. And then there's a time lapse. There's a waiting period. There's always a delay where God is getting you ready while he's getting the plan ready for you. Now, the second naysayer actually was the society around him or the culture around him or the conventional wisdom, the popular opinion. Write this down. Number 2, everybody else was afraid. And that fear held David back. Everybody was afraid of this guy, Goliath. The prevailing view in Israel was that this giant who was on the opposing team, Goliath, was unstoppable, that he was unbeatable. And Goliath had created this climate of fear and culture of fear, and everybody said, it can't be done. This guy cannot be taken down. He's just too big. And so everybody in the nation was discouraged because they got a secret weapon. They got this giant guy, and we have nobody. Now, here's the second thing that will hold you back, and that is discouragement. The first is delay, and it could be a parent who holds you back. And the second is discouragement. And that's when everybody around you thinks it can't be done. Everybody around you thinks it's impossible. Everybody around you is living in fear. And discouragement can come from anywhere. Verse 8 to 11 says this in the Bible. Each day, Goliath would stand and shout at the ranks of Israel's army. Why do you come out here and line up for battle? Goliath says. Choose one man to fight me, and if he's able to kill me, then we'll become your subjects. But if I kill him, then you will become our subjects and serve us. So he's saying, look, let's not even have a battle. Let's just do mano a mano, one-on-one, man-on-man. You pick your best guy, take your best shot at me. Whoever wins will own the country. Day after day, Goliath taunted them, saying, this day I defy the ranks of Israel. Now when Saul, that's the king, and the Israelites heard this, everyone was deeply shaken and paralyzed with fear. Now, notice the situation here. One guy is creating a climate of fear in the entire country. It's demoralized everybody. They're gripped with anxiety. They're terrified. They're traumatized. Nobody is willing to do anything. They're all paralyzed by fear, hopeless, so frightened they can't do a thing. Have you ever worked in an office like that? Where there's a culture of fear in an office. Everybody's so afraid of making a mistake that the big guy, the boss, will can you, will fire you, and this climate of fear in grip. So nobody has any new ideas. Nobody even tries anything in the office because everybody's afraid of losing their job, and they're all just trying to protect their turf. Sounds like a lot of places where people work. And people go, well, there's nothing we can do. This was the prevailing opinion. This was the conventional wisdom. This was the prevailing mood of culture. It's a problem too big, nobody can solve it. Now, I want to tell you something. Conventional wisdom is often wrong. The majority is often wrong. Public opinion is often wrong. majority doesn't make something right. There's a lot of things our culture believes that aren't right. Now, there's a third naysayer David had to deal with, and this actually was his own brother, his elder brother. Write this down. A third kind of people is his brother questioned his motives. And that was a hindrance. And there are going to be people who question your motives. When you share a big dream, they just think you're on an ego trip. When you share a big goal, they just think you don't know what you're talking about. They don't know that you're trusting God. This is the barrier of disapproval. David sees what's going on, and he sees this Goliath out there, and everybody's afraid to take him on. And in verse 28, David asked, what's the reward for killing this guy, for killing this Philistine? What's the reward for killing this Philistine and ending this disgraceful abuse? Now, when David's older brother heard this, he heard David ask this question, he burned with anger at David. Okay, this guy's jealous. He doesn't like his younger brother asking questions about taking on Goliath. And his older brother says, why are you even here anyway? Why aren't you taking care of your scrawny little flock of sheep? You cocky little brat. Doesn't this sound like sibling rivalry? You cocky little brat. I know how conceited you are. Now, let me ask you, who's really the conceited one here? It's the older brother. I know how conceited you are. Now what have I done, said David. Can't I even ask a question? Can't you hear the youngest person in the family saying that? Now what have I done? Now what have I done? You know, all I did was ask a question. What's the reward for killing this guy? David's older brother questions David's motives. He treats him with disdain. He treats him with disgust, with disregard. He belittles him. Now, I hate to tell you this, but sometimes there are family members in your family who don't want you to succeed at your dream. It upsets the apple cart. It changes the equation. It shakes up the system. Who's really conceited here? The brother. Now, there was a fourth naysayer, and I want you to write this down, because all four of these you have to deal with: delay, discouragement, and disapproval. And the fourth one is the experts. So write this down. The experts doubted his ability. And in your life, there will be experts who doubt your ability. And David had never served in a war. He had no military training. He wasn't an Army Ranger. He wasn't a Navy SEAL. He wasn't a Delta Force. He wasn't Special Ops. He had no training at all as a professional warrior. The only thing he had is he had a little slingshot, and he knew how to use it real well. He once killed a bear and once killed a lion. These were in the days when there were a lot more animals, obviously, in Israel, to protect his sheep. So he had killed things with his slingshot, but he had no professional training. And all the authorities and all the experts and all of the professionals said, this kid can't do it. He's a pipsqueak. He's an amateur. He can't do it. And so when King Saul hears about David volunteering, this little shepherd boy volunteering to take on a giant that everybody else has been afraid to take on, Saul calls him to his office. And David says this, verse 32 in the Bible. David says to Saul, don't worry about a thing. David told the king, I'll fight this Philistine. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way that you, a shepherd boy, can go against this Philistine, this giant. You're only a boy. And he's been a professional warrior all his life. So he's saying, leave this matter to the experts. David, you are inexperienced. You should leave it to the pros. And I'm going to tell you this, that in your life, there will be people who will say that to you. You're not a pro at this. Why are you even trying to start this business? Why are you even doing this hobby? Why are you trying to build this ministry? You're not a pro at this. Oh, and leave this to the experts. You're an amateur. I want to tell you, just like I said that the majority is often wrong, the experts are often wrong. How do you handle the naysayers in your life? There are four things you need to do. This is a skill you have to learn if you're ever going to be a leader. So let me give these to you. Write these down. Four things that David did the skills of leadership on how to handle the naysayers in your life, whether it's a parent or a brother or the crowd or the experts, whether it's delay or doubt or discouragement or disappointment or disapproval, whatever. Here's the first thing, the naysayers in your life. Number one, remember, they are not God. They may be good people. They may love you. They may be great people, but they're not God. And so don't treat their opinion like it's God's opinion. Remember, they are not God, the people who are negative in your life. Proverbs 29, verse 25 says this: the fear of human opinion disables, but trusting in God protects you from that. I love that in the message. Some of you are disabled and don't know it. You have a disability. You know what your disability is? You're addicted to the approval of others. And that's your disability. The fear of human opinion disables, but trusting in God protects you from that. When you trust in God, you don't worry about the opinion of other people. Today's English version says, it's dangerous to be concerned with what other people think of you. What other people think of you is none of your business. What other people think of you is none of your business. You shouldn't care about what other people think. You should only care about what God thinks of you. Isaiah 8:13. I want us to read this verse aloud with great enthusiasm. Okay, read it with me. Do not fear anything except the Lord Almighty. He alone is the Holy One. If you fear him, you need fear nothing else. If you fear God, you're not going to be afraid of anybody else because you know God's going to take care of you. So you got to start with getting a big vision of God. And the people who are putting you down, the people who are negative, the people who are telling you can't be done, they're not God. They may be good, they may love you, you may love them, but they're not God. Remember, they're not God. Okay, number two. Second thing David did, and you got to do this too if you're going to ever be a leader, if you're going to succeed in life, don't get distracted by the negativity, by the people who say it can't be done, by the people who tell you you're not the person, you're the wrong guy, you're the wrong woman. Don't get distracted. Now, I know I'm digging a little deep here for some of you, but some of you have the personality that you cannot stand to be misunderstood. And you just feel you have to correct it because you can't think possible that anybody in the universe might misunderstand you. And so you feel duty-bound to explain everything you believe and everything you do, and you actually think that people who oppose you, that it's just a matter of misunderstanding, and that if you would just were able to explain it to them very clearly, then obviously they would go, oh, thank you, you're right. And you have this feeling that if I just explain what I'm doing, then this person who's negative about it will all of a sudden become positive about it. They'll agree with you. No, they won't. I hate to bust your bubble, but they won't. Because most of the time, all of us, every human being, uses what's called motivated reasoning. You use it about 95% of the time. I do. Everybody does. Motivated reasoning is based on emotion, not based on logic. You think you're logical. You're not nearly as logical as you think you are. You make decisions emotionally, and then you look for logic to back it up. People do this with accepting Jesus Christ. They have an emotional fear of accepting Christ, and then they look for logical reasons to back it up. But the real reason is emotional. It's emotional. It's a fear. It's a fear of loss of control. It's a fear I'll lose my freedom. It's a fear, are you kidding? Who do you think created you? Matthew 10, verse 26. Don't be intimidated by these naysayers. Eventually, everything's going to be out in the open, and everyone will know how things really are. So just have the faith to wait for that day. Don't feel like you have to spend all your time defending why you do, or what you do, or who you say it to, or what you believe. You don't. You don't. One day, it'll all come out. Everybody's going to know how things really are. Have the faith to wait for the day. And really, what matters is not what other people think of you. It's only what matters is what God thinks of you. Okay, number 3, the third key. Realize they're not God. Don't get distracted. Number 3, never attack back. Never, 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 never attack back to a naysayer. Just leave it all in God's hands. Don't be a smart mouth. Don't be sarcastic. Don't retaliate. Now, let me show you some verses on this. Let's read Proverbs 11:12 aloud together. Read it with me. It is foolish to speak scornfully of others. Oh, stop right there. It's foolish to speak scornfully of others. Then God would consider a lot of people on the internet fools, because they're speaking scornfully all the time about others. People of other political persuasions, people of other religions, people who have other music taste, people who don't like the sports team you like. It says there, it is foolish to speak scornfully of others. If you're smart, you will keep what? Now, let me give you a little secret. Some of those naysayers in your life who tell you it can't be done, who are negative all the time, they're always commenting on your marriage and your looks and your kids and whatever. Those people, some of them are not that bright. They aren't. They're just not that bright. It's any fool can criticize. It takes genius to build a building. Any fool can criticize it. It takes genius to create a piece of art. Any fool can criticize it. It's a genius to make a great movie. Any fool can. You can teach a chimpanzee to criticize. So he's saying here, don't attack back. Some of these naysayers in your life, they're not that bright, and you, with your brilliant wit, could put them in their place quite quickly. Don't. Sometimes I'll hear somebody will say something about me, and I think, oh man, I could shoot that one down fast enough. And I have this little witty repartee that I could give back that would just slay them, but I never use it. Never. Why? Because the Bible says don't retaliate. The key is to respond like Jesus. 1 Peter chapter 2 says this. When they hurled their insults at Jesus, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats back. Instead, he entrusted himself to him, this is God, to God who judges justly. I am most like Jesus when I stay silent under attack. I am most like Jesus when I stay silent under attack. And I just put it in the hands of God and realize one day it's all going to even out. God's going to settle the score. The truth will come out. All the nasty stuff that's been said about you that's false will be worthless. And what will matter is what God said about you. Number 4. Fourth thing is stay focused on God and his promises. Don't focus on the problem. Don't focus on the people. Don't focus on the naysayers. Stay focused on God and his promises. Become a promise person. Learn the promises of the Bible. There's about 7,000 of them in the Bible. Promises of God to you. 1 Samuel chapter 30 says this, verse 6. Bitter people spoke against David and talked of stoning him. This is later on in life when he is king. Bitter people spoke of David and talked of stoning him, but David found his strength in the television. Oh, that's the reviled substandard perversion translation. All right. David found strength where? In the Lord. In the Lord. When somebody's being a naysayer, you don't go gossip about them to somebody else in the office. You just find your strength in the Lord. The Lord, I know you love me. I know you have a plan for my life. I'm going to trust you. Look at these last verses. Psalm 118, verse 6, David says, the Lord is for me. The Lord is for me, so I won't be afraid. What could mere mortals do to me? You know what? People can dislike you, and it won't harm you. You need to understand this. You don't need anybody else's approval to be happy. And you're probably not going to get it if you haven't got it by now. You don't need anybody's approval to be happy. You're as happy as you choose to be. You don't need your parents' approval, your brother's approval, your sister's approval, some friend's approval. You're as happy as you choose to be. It says, the Lord's for me. I'm not going to be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? They have their opinions, so what? Psalm 119, 41 and 42. Show me, David prays, how much you love me, Lord. You love me, Lord. So it doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't love me. Show me how much you love me, Lord, and save me according to your promise. Have you been saved? God has a promise to save you. He says, save me according to your promise. Then I can answer those who insult me because I trust in your word. Psalm 119, verse 11 says, I've banked your promises in the vault of my heart. That's what you need to do. Instead of banking all the negative things people have said about you in your heart or in your mind, you need to bank the promises of God in your heart and in your mind. What God says about you is what matters, and the other doesn't.